Okay, I get a message that the meeting is streaming on YouTube now.
Me too.
You want to try it?
Okay, I get a message that the meeting is streaming
It-
on YouTube.
Okay, it is streaming on there. Okay, it is streaming on there.
Hello, Michael.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
Hello, Michael.
Good.
So now here's what's going to happen, unfortunately, is that if you have your YouTube open, it'll pick up your mic and do it twice.
I'm not going to YouTube. Do I have to?
No,
No,
Okay.
I'm not on YouTube.
I'm not on YouTube either.
nor am I.
Somebody is.
I am, because I'm the host.
Oh, okay.
I just need to mute. Can I say something?
Mark,
Cece, can I mute it?
Mark, the second repeat is very quiet. It really doesn't interfere.
Can you exit out of YouTube, Mark? I don't know for sure. Did it bring up a YouTube window? Can you exit out of YouTube? You should be able to like silence that screen. You should be able to like silence that.
Any luck?
Oh, it shows that there's two people watching.
Go ahead, hit it. The link.
That might be me and you. I have it on my cell phone.
Oh, you're one of the two. You're one of the two. You're one of the two.
5 are now watching.
What'd you say, Suzanne?
5 are now watching.
Okay. It's better than 2.
Working.
All right, I think I muted it on my side, so there shouldn't be this redundancy.
Yeah, I don't hear it again.
Paul,
Yeah,
I think we're ready to go.
okay. Let's call the meeting to order at 1 o'clock. Madam Secretary, do we have a quorum?
We do.
Very good. Let's carry on. We have members speaking. Terry, you made a request.
Yes, I have 2 letters that tennis members have asked me to read, and they're brief enough that I can do that without taking up too much time. First one is from Ed Kikila, and he says, I'm writing to ask the board to consider reopening the tennis courts. When the courts were initially closed, one reason given was because non-tennis homeowners complained to board members that tennis players were going to pass the coronavirus virus onto them. Because tennis is complacent with the rest of the community, that concern is unwarranted. Another reason was because some players were not taking social distancing seriously. Today, everyone is taking the coronavirus very seriously. No one wants to catch the virus, and no one wants to pass it on to others. There are ways to play tennis safely. The tennis committee put together a list of rules that everyone would be expected to follow. Those not playing by the rules could be suspended from playing. Players are going to police each other because they don't want to get the virus. Opening the courts could also take some financial strain off of the club. Please open the courts. If we don't follow the rules, shut us down. Please give us a chance to prove we can do this. Respectfully, Ed Kikela from Sanctuary Point.
Is that a resident here?
Yes, he is. He's a resident member. Then I have John Irish, who he's listed a number of items. I'm only going to through a few of them. Both public and private facilities such as golf courses and tennis courts are open here in Collier County now. People all over our Sterling Oaks community in driveways, garages, and parking lots while practicing social distancing. This practice poses the same risk as Sterling Oaks as tennis members assembling to play tennis. Is the board considering outlawing all assembling in public areas in the entire community? The use case of a player with his or her private ball machine was never considered when the board voted to close the courts. Please review that. Playing tennis outdoors in the sunshine maintains health in a number of ways versus sitting inside being inactive. Tennis members pay to play tennis. How is the board planning on compensating tennis members for April and, if approved by the board, May? Is the board suggesting members pay for services not rendered? Thank you, John D. Irish. Those are the two letters that I have.
Is John Irish a resident?
I'm not sure, Paul, because he put down, I think he is, but he didn't.
Yes, he
put down
is.
what section. Yeah, I didn't know what section of the community that he lives in.
He's in
Okay.
Sweetwater.
Sweetwater, okay, fair enough. Okay, those are the two letters that I have.
Okay, thank you. Chap, you have a letter to read?
Yeah, I've been asked to read a letter from Eric Frankel, a resident in Sanctuary Point, letter dated the 20th of April. I am writing to the president and the board of directors to express my disappointment in the directors who voted against closing our tennis courts during this health crisis. As a Vietnam veteran, I and the men that I led were at risk many times, but not for an issue as petty as keeping the tennis courts open for a vocal minority that only represents approximately 10% of our homeowners. Even the USTA has canceled events through May 31st. To put the lives and safety of our families, friends, and employees at risk is unconscionable and immoral. These directors, with their self-dealing interests, lack of concern for all of our residents' health and well-being, are violating their moral and ethical responsibilities as board members. They have voted for the benefit of their own interests rather than the members of the community that they represent. If they can't or are unwilling to consider the entire community, then they should be publicly asked to resign from the board. If unwilling to, then they should be censured and stripped of their liaison and committee responsibilities. Their continued presence on the board will continue to widen the gap between tennis and non-tennis members, as well as create a lack of credibility in future votes, since they were elected to represent their respective communities, not their personal special interests. We and most of the residents we know are grateful for and supportive of all that you and the majority of directors are doing during these troubled times. Our hope is that the board can achieve a unified position on a go-forward basis. Thank you for your consideration, Eric Frankel. That's it.
Okay, and obviously he's a resident in this community.
Yes.
John Mihok, you have a letter to read?
Yes, I do. This is an email from Tom Reese, the chairman of the Bocce Committee. And I'll just read it as it says. It says, "Morning, Paul. I received a request from Mark on how to reopen Bocce. Myself, Rick, and Len Falco have talked. We do not want the responsibility or the liability to make recommendations. The board closed it, and if they want to reopen, they are able and want that liability, so be it. We as a committee, thank you for standing up for all of the residents of this community's well-being and safety. We are still in a stay-at-home lockdown, and we know you have our best interests. Thank you for a great job as this crazy time. That's from Tom Reese.
Okay, thank you. Are there any more letters to be read?
All, I'm not going to read them, but I got a bunch of letters supporting opening tennis up. None other than, of course, the letter from Mr. Frankel, where he's our moral judge now. But I'm not going to bother to read them all. Okay. None of them asked me to specifically read them, but I thought I should mention that.
Okay. I think that's going to set the tenor for this meeting. It's pretty obvious. I hope we can move through it with diligence and prudence. So with that, let's go to the secretary's report. We'll get through a number of these things, and then we'll get on, I think, very quickly with the issue at hand, which will be the reopen plan. So with that, let's start with the secretary's report. Lynn.
I'd like to make a motion. We approve the minutes from the March 19th, 2020 meeting.
Second.
Okay,
Second.
we have a second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? I think, Cezanne, you'll have to take a roll call with this type of format.
Maybe you could just hold your hands up.
We could hold our hands up on a unanimous.
Okay, let's do that.
Perfect.
Okay, so it's unanimous.
So Son, you didn't vote.
I don't get a vote.
Okay, go ahead, Lynn.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the March 25th, 2020 meeting.
Second,
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, it passes unanimously. Lynn, last one.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the April 7th meeting.
Second.
Second, any changes? Any corrections? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that passes unanimously also. Let's move to treasurer's report, Chap.
Okay, I want everyone to listen pretty carefully. And if you might want to take some notes. The reason to listen very carefully is I now have the numbers through March. And I will tell you what those numbers are. Our net income, or what I'll call the enterprise profit and loss, was $41,000 worse than budget. The main culprits are the following. Number one is what we used to call, I don't know what we call it now, food and beverage. Year to date is $22,000 worse than budget. Let me deal with that one first. There are two reasons for that deficit versus budget. Number one should be pretty obvious to everyone. We've got about a $30,000 shortfall year to date in revenue. We've had virtually no revenue in the month of March, for example. Second reason for this deficit is the welcome back party, which we decided to do after the budget was formed for 2020, cost us $10,000. So I've just, explained all of, and then some, all of the food and beverage loss year to date versus budget. Second major culprit is, and Mark, if I make a mistake on any of this, feel free to chime in. Second culprit is our insurance expenses are $16,000 over budget. I think the major reason for that is we had to increase the premiums for insurance, mainly due to the renovation, and secondarily, due to making sure we had enough liability insurance for the club and for the board of directors. Mark, is that pretty accurate?
It is, but you have to understand that in the budget, you'll see insurance spread out over 12 months. We pay for it all in January, which then you'll see it, kind of take a higher hit. But we did, when we established the budget, we did not have insurance set up for the size and for the renovation that happened. In other words, when we passed the budget back the year before, we did not know what the insurance premiums would be with the new size of the storage and the bar, all the new equipment that came into the building through the renovation. So we had to increase coverages. We also wanted to make sure we had a couple of claims that came at us from the outside. One was Janie and one was Coker. The insurance companies were a little bit nervous about our coverage as it applied to those individuals coming after us for our actions. And we wanted to make sure that the directors and officers liability covered actions by homeowners against the board rather than the board actions against the homeowners. So there was a little bit of a swing in the budget there, but it had mostly to do with the renovation.
Okay, the last culprit is we continue to have a problem with here we go again, Lindia, with the condo water sewer garbage. I don't think we're charging enough. The size of the problem through March is $15,000. So this is an ongoing problem. If you recall, last year we solved the problem basically by just swallowing it and taking it out of cash. We've reached the point where we're not going to be able to swallow this anymore. So this could result in having to solve the problem at the end of the year. Certainly we don't want to do anything now because I think the last thing we'd want to do now is try to increase the amount of money that the amount of money that the people in the condos are paying to us in the form of dues.
How do you get more definition on the issue?
More definition on the issue. We estimate at the beginning of the year how much the club, us, has to shell out every month to cover water, sewer, and garbage costs at the condos. We then charge that amount of money to the condo owners in the form in their bill. So we make an estimate, the condo people get charged every month based on.
I understand that. The question is, what data are you using to tell me that it's how to fix the issue? How do we address the issue?
May I?
That estimate, or is there something leaking someplace?
I'm not aware of anything leaking. I think the primary reason is increased water and sewer charges from the county. And I think, Mark, I think we've also stepped up garbage collection beyond what we thought we'd have to. Isn't that right?
We are paying more for water than we were. We have to remember that these specific estimates were part of the formulation of the budget back in August and September of last year. I think that we did increase them by $3 from 40 to 43. Is that correct, Cece?
We did increase them, but you also have to remember when you look at your income versus expense, your income is based on taking the totals and dividing them by 12, and everybody gets charged the same amount every month. But January, February, March, your expenses are going to be much higher than July, August, September, because water usage is higher here at in season versus summer. So generally by the end of summer, your income and expense begin to flatten out and even out.
So
Yeah.
I'm guessing if we looked at the trends for 2019, we'd see the same kind of variance with what Cezanne said. More
Absolutely.
the first
Probably.
3 months than the third 3.
Yeah, probably.
Linda
I
wants
mean,
to say something.
Yeah, Linda?
Yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
I'll just give you an example. During January, February, and March, in our building, my building, we have 8 units. They were all full, all January, February, and March. Today, we're the only ones here. 1 unit is being occupied right now. So there is a drastic change, and I'm sure Cezanne could check that, because there, like she said, there's a drastic change. And then June, July, and August, even more so. So I think, and another thing is the more annual rentals we have, I don't know how we can collect money for this, but the annual rental uses water, sewer, and garbage all year. The seasonal rental is 3 months. I mean, that's a big difference. I don't know how to adjust for that, but I think there should be an adjustment when someone is an annual renter.
You could change the fee schedule, I presume.
Okay, let me recommend this. Rather than try to work this out at this board meeting, can I ask that Jack, Linda, Chap, and Cezanne work on this and bring a solution back to us at the next board meeting?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do, I mean, obviously that's the thing to do, but if Linda and Jack are correct, this kind of deficit should moderate as the months pass. So at a minimum, we'll keep an eye on this.
Yes, I think that's the hypothesis. Let's test it and see if in fact that's the case. So let's take a look at the previous years and see if this keeps coming up, because it seems over the last few months, this has come up often. So I'll ask the 4 of you to look into this and give us a report at the next board meeting, hopefully with a solution.
Okay, now I want to, so I've explained the culprits. Now let's go back to the deficit, the $41,000 deficit year to date. It is my belief and the belief of the Finance Committee is if we got to the end of the year and that was our deficit, we could cover that with our cash position. But there is a limit to how much of a deficit we can cover with our cash as the months go by. I'm not sure what that limit is, but I want to give you a what if. Let's assume we get to the end of the year and we have a $100,000 deficit. That, in my view, is a deficit that cannot be covered with our cash position. So at that point, we would have 3 options. The first is the poorest of the 3 options, which is to borrow money from the bank. The second is to borrow money from our reserves. And the reason that's a better option than number one is we wouldn't have to pay any interest on borrowing money from our reserves. Yes, what that option does is it solves the problem at no interest, but it sort of kicks the can down the road because eventually those reserves are going to have to be replaced. And the way you replace them is increase fees, increase dues to cover reserve payback. The third way we could solve the problem is with an assessment. Now, I'm not recommending anything. I'm just giving you all food for thought here. Every $100,000 assessment would cost each homeowner $133. A $75,000 assessment would cost each homeowner $100. I'm not saying we have an unsolvable problem, but what I'm saying is if the amount, we don't have an unsolvable problem now because I think we can cover it with cash, but there's a limit to how far we can go. And if it gets into triple digits, we're going to have to exercise one of the three options that I outlined. Okay? Next thing is with maybe one or two exceptions that we'll probably talk about later. I think we're doing everything possible to minimize the impact of this shutdown. For example, we have applied for all government programs that are out there to help us out. The SBA, the PPP, and at this point, we haven't received any ruling from these programs. What I hear via Mark, and I'll ask Mark now to comment on this, is we keep trying, but I'm not necessarily very optimistic. Mark, you have anything to add?
We applied for the SBA $10,000 loan and it was put into the queue. We have not heard anything back. We have also are in and trying to work out the kinks with the PPP loan, which our loan for that is somewhere in the neighborhood of $170,000. When I was talking to the clubs yesterday, I had a Zoom meeting just like we're on here today, only with 20 other general managers from the surrounding communities, golf course clubs, etc. Their average PPP loan is $700,000. There's been 3 clubs out of the 24 that have been, they have gotten their money. They applied through a different banks. They also showed their losses in the $500,000 to $700,000 range with 100 employees, on their payroll. I spoke to Geraldine this morning. Geraldine is optimistic that we can apply for these, whether or not, because we are a homeowners association and we do not have the subsequent revenue losses of the size that these golf courses do, we may or may not be accepted into that PPP loan. However, we are eligible for the tax credits, and the tax credits we will, which are tax-free, and they do not apply to taxable income, and that we can get those, will come in somewhere around $90,000. So we're working on those as well to alleviate some of the deficit in that area. So that's what I can tell you right now. We're still working towards getting as much as we can from the government. We do not anticipate or want or need a loan that is not forgiven that we have to have on our books as a long-term debt. So we're taking a hard look at that as well. There are several condo and homeowners associations which have been flatly denied for the loans simply on the basis that they are a homeowner association and that they are fully funded by their own operations and that they don't rely on outside sources of revenue such as these huge golf courses that really depend on a lot of cash flow to manage and balance their budget. So that's one of the reasons we feel that they're getting theirs. One last thing, Chap, but can you at least expound a little bit on the capital expenditure variance that we are at this point in time?
Well, I've elected not to highlight that as a problem because I think it's has more to do with timing than anything else.
But it's part of that 41,000, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Our capital expenditure versus budget, again, it's versus budget. Deficit is, where the hell is that? I got that here somewhere. Hold on. $24,000. And I think most of it has to do with timing. Don't you agree, Mark?
It's exactly what it is. We, for all of you and everybody else, when we have $100,000 or $120,000 in capital expense during any given year for those items that we want to build that we don't have yet, the only other way that we put them in is we put $10,000 in 1 month, and maybe over 2 or 3 or 4 months we put in 15,000, but we don't have a specific timing mechanism for that. As you well see here, we spent more money in the first quarter than we actually had on the budget sheet. So as we move forward, we'll try to get those balanced out. And going forward, we may want to start utilizing another way of sort of, I guess, accounting for those so that we
That's
have
why-
an accurate.
That's why I elected not to bring it up as an issue right now because it's timing.
I understand.
Yeah, it should equal out over the course of the year.
Yeah, as long as we don't get carried away with.
Well, we already aren't doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that you all know that $24,000 of the $41,000 has to deal with the, that's another part of the culprits.
I'm not giving you any of these numbers and discussing borrowing from the reserves or borrowing from the bank or having an assessment. I'm not giving any of you these numbers to tell you that we got to cross one of those bridges now. What I'm trying to do is just give you a feel for the potential, I don't even want to say potential, a possible magnitude of our problem and how we go about solving it. That's all I'm trying to do. Okay? All right, I've got a couple other things.
Paul, I'd like to make a few comments. Okay.
Let's let Chap get through his report.
Oh,
and
I
then
thought
we'll
he
come-
was through. I thought he was.
No,
through.
I've got.
Oh, okay.
I've
Sorry.
got 2 other things.
Oh, okay.
Our late payments, and Cezanne's closer to this than me, but I'm reasonably close. Our late payments show a small increase, but nothing to write home about. And we really don't have any accounts in collection at this time beyond the South Maid, which we're trying to manage every month. Correct, Suzanne?
Well, South Maid's in bankruptcy, so they're making their payments. There's nothing we can do for it.
Okay. Last thing I want to tell you is I just want to make sure you all understand who's on the payroll right now. And here's who's on the payroll. We've got the office staff, Mark, Cezanne, Nicole, and Laura. Mark? Okay. We have the chef to assist in Nicole's pickup meal program. And I believe it's a part-time sous chef, Mark?
He's a full-time sous chef.
Okay, and a sous chef. We have the maintenance crew, which currently consists of 3 people.
Correct.
And we have the tennis pro. That's it. And I believe we have a part-time, maybe 10-hour a week housekeeping lady, correct, Mark?
So why don't you contrast that to what the budget is for employees? So instead of coming up with these comments, you can put it in perspective. I mean, what are we saving on the budget for labor?
I don't,
All right, but that's my point is the numbers would be more important than who's here and who's not here necessarily, because
the only reason I'm going to tell
really
you.
we're spending less on labor than it's.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't give you that number. The only reason I'm telling you who's currently on the payroll is something we may be discussing during the executive session. Okay? I can't go any further than that right now. That's all I have to say.
Okay, Brownie, questions?
Oh, well, wasn't a question. I had a few comments. First of all, and Mark might do that, I would think that March would have been a big loss for food and beverage. We hadn't really adjusted, but I would think now for April, with the number of mills, the labor is cut down, and that if anything, we'd be in pretty good shape for April qualitatively. Is that, am I interpreting that right, Mark?
No,
Normally, March is one of our biggest and most robust months from a revenue. And in past years, March has almost been a break even or profitable month. So with the stoppage of all revenues into the house, the fixed costs remain to some degree. We drastically chop the hourly staff from that budget, but the fixed costs of operations still remain that are being charged to that. We're still have all of the electric, gas, everything's in there. We still have the salaried individuals, which are going to be necessary once you open up to have things going again. April is going to still show a deficit. It's going to be, the fixed costs of budgeted labor are going to be lower. However, you're going to see, decreased revenues as well. One of the culprits that's in my general manager's report, you'll see, is that if we could, sell alcohol, which is at a 20% profit, a cost margin, that really helps offset stuff. So when we have no sales of any of that low cost revenues, it really affects the bottom line. So hence the reason bars make money. But we haven't had that opportunity to access that revenue stream. So
The other thing that I think I disagree with you, Brownie, is that part of March we were open. We didn't close down until pretty much close to the middle of March, I think, when we finally closed down. So we ran heavy for a little while, whereas in April, we were shut down completely except for the food service for the takeouts, which is extremely expensive.
Well, let me just make comment. We're talking generalities. We've done, I always thought as we actually did more business, we lost more money. That's been our history. And that a big part of that was the amount of serving staff and all when we did have the bands we hired and all of that. So I would think for April, with the labor costs way down, even though the revenue, we would probably lose less than budgeted. So maybe I'm wrong, but that was my perception. So I've just asked the question. I hear that's not the case. Okay. The other thing that I would mention, we can't do anything about the insurance. It sounds like that you're all going to look at and work that problem with the water, although I think that the summer with the lower costs would resolve it. But the thing I didn't hear, chap, which is part of our budget, is that I think right now it's listed as a plus 10,000 profit from tennis. My big concern, and I know it was only through March with our resignations and non-renewals in tennis, is that could be the biggest effect, and you did not speak to that, or maybe we're going to speak to it later.
well, I think we're going to have I can tell you exactly what the numbers if you give me a minute, I can tell you exactly what the numbers are for tennis through March. My memory tells me that in March, we had a $4,000 profit from tennis.
Yeah, but April is going to be different. So that's the
I
March
don't-
number doesn't mean much, right? That's the
I don't know. I don't know what April's going to be. Let's talk about this when we get to tennis's
Okay, I thought we might. Okay.
report. Is that okay with you, Lenny?
Yeah, it's fine. We can wait.
Okay.
But again, I just wanted to make the point that that could be the biggest negative. Okay, I know we're going to have to work it.
Okay, I guess that's all for me.
I got
Okay,
a question, chap.
go ahead, John.
I didn't understand it last year, and I'm still not sure I understand it this year, but when we budget so much for the condo, water, sewer,
Yeah.
trash,
Yeah,
there's an overrun. Why is it that the home association has to make up the differential?
it doesn't. If we're going to make up the differential by charging more money, that differential would be charged to the condo people.
Well,
Not
it
to the
wasn't
homeowner.
last year on the water, right?
No, we decided not to charge the condo people last year because we had a pretty flush cash position and we just ate it.
But
Right.
under normal circumstances, if there's an overrun, that gets pushed back to the condo owners?
Yes.
Paul?
Is that right?
Yeah, but I don't know what normal circumstances are. I can't give you any history beyond last year of condo water, sewer, trash use versus what we collected. Lindia?
Yes.
And then Lanny after Lindia.
Okay, so we never had an overcharge until a few years ago. There was a year and we had an assessment and I think it came to between $50 and $100 per unit. That would be condo and coach home per unit.
That was a couple years ago, right, Lindia?
Yes, and
Okay.
Suzanne can probably be a much more specific, but it was a couple years ago. And then we talked with Suzanne and we worked out, and she did increase the budget to count for this. Now, we had a huge water leak at Sweetwater Bay 6, and it ran all weekend. Now, Mark, was that Collier County utility water?
Yes.
Okay,
That
so,
was last year.
yeah, and that's why
Okay.
we were over. That was last year, we were over. And there was a deal worked out kind of because the condo owners, all the units here had paid into something that didn't affect us, but we all paid into it. I think it was mulch, or I don't know what it was. There
Yeah,
was
that's right.
something that we all paid for. So in return, our water got covered by all people. So it was kind of a wash.
That's totally correct, Lindia.
John, that was for your benefit. It wasn't that we got anything more than anybody else out of it.
Okay, Lanny, do you have a comment?
Yes, I was just going to make that same statement about the mulch. What had happened was that we under budgeted for the mulch because we did it based on a previous budget rather than a previous actual. So homeowners got some subsidy from the club for mulch, and condo and coach home owners got some subsidy from the club for water. And we agreed that for 2019, that everybody benefited because we were doing okay.
Exactly.
Okay, any other questions of chat? Okay, let's move to suspensions and fines.
Oh, I guess I have to move that we suspend the member as indicated in the board packet. I believe it's one suspension, right?
Correct. What neighborhood, Cezanne? Or
I'll
is
have to
this-
look. I don't have it in front of me. I think he's in the condos.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Second.
Okay, Jack McBurney seconded. Any further discussion?
Clarify the motion. clarify the motion. I didn't hear the last part.
The motion is that we suspend,
Page 4.
member number T0025 as described in the Sterling Oaks collection policy and referred this account to our attorney to pursue all legal remedies available.
Oh, okay.
It's
That's
the
fine.
It's the standard monthly suspension.
Okay, you were just, I thought it was something else. So,
No.
Sorry.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. None opposed, motion carries unanimously. Okay, we'll move to President's report. And I have a couple caveats before I give my report. The first one is to the community. And we're going to present a plan today, and very few people will be happy with it, which signifies to me that it's probably a pretty good compromise. But the caveat to the community is that at some time, we're going to have to open up the community. And what we will propose today is a plan to do that. It'll be a pretty rigid and strict plan and pretty detailed. Now, the caveat to the board as we move through this today is to consider the entire community. So with that, I will begin my report. I'm going to recommend to you, the board, a phased graduated reopen plan to begin on Monday, May 4th. This date and plan has been set in anticipation of a modification of the governor's shelter-in-place order. We anticipate probably this weekend that will change. In anticipation of Collier County's reopen plan, again, we think that is imminent. And in following the conventional wisdom of the other communities in our area, and Mark and I have been monitoring their coming and goings over the past 4 weeks, and there are probably 150 communities in the area. And finally, respecting the tenor and wishes of our residents and neighbors in Sterling Oaks. So it's my sense that the community feels we've acted in their best interest and with prudence and timeliness in shutting down all common areas. And they now trust us to offer a well thought out plan to gradually reopen. We will discuss that today shortly. We know that social and physical interaction can be healthy as well. But to say that social distancing is working is not to imply that social distancing has worked. The crisis has not passed, and social distancing and CDC guidelines may forever change the way we interact from here on out. Our plan requires strict adherence to rules that will allow for safe interaction. These rules will be enforced by surveillance, by monitoring, and by participants' self-discipline. The plan will be a test of civil obedience in our community and will determine how and when we return to a new normal. I know this is going to be a good compromise plan because it's been floating out now for 24 hours and no one is happy with it. So on another front, I want to suggest that we pursue the collection of assessments aggressively, since without this income, Sterling Oaks, like all other associations, would be unable to provide basic services to owners and residents. It's only in this current year that we've come out from under the burden of lack of collections of bank-owned properties that we suffered during the Great Recession in the mid-2000s. We do plan to offer relief to our homeowners, which we will address later in this meeting when discussing the issue of our long-term capital fund, and Chap made mention of that earlier. Now, finally, we come to a project that should have laser focused our attention had it not been for the COVID-19 crisis, and that is the Sterling Oaks Strategic Plan. The plan, which has been in development for over a year, is proceeding nicely under the guidance of Jerry Schoenfeld at FGCU. And at our last meeting, we identified 8 key priorities based on our community-wide survey results. Our next step is to develop broad goals for each one of these 8 areas. We then develop detailed action steps to accomplish the goals with attention to matters such as metrics used to measure success, financial impact, individual responsible for implementation, and deadlines for accomplishment. Our next meeting will focus out on filling out the template, and Jerry will take us through that. And the meeting, I anticipate, will be next week. And it will be the hardest part of this strategic plan, where we put our nose to the grindstone and do the details. But it can also be the most gratifying part of the plan. So once again, that's where we are in this period in time. And shortly we will discuss this reopening plan, and I will ask for everyone's harmonious address as we talk about the plan. So with that, let's go to Mark and the manager's report.
You all have my report in front of you. Well, this is mostly for everybody else, I guess, that are watching. The reopening procedures, I've attached the paper in, and it's in your packet, outlining the various areas. We'll look at opening. My idea is to have a phased plan for the areas and restrictions in place for them. The cabana bathrooms. Renovation is progressing. The floor and the white wall tile are in. The AC units are installed. Cabinets and countertops are next. We do have the 2 cabinets in, and the 2 countertops are in. We went in today. And then the partitions and fixtures. The front bar area was slated to begin this week. I don't know if it's going to get started this week, probably next. And then at the end, they'll paint the interior of where the tile is not, and the color matching some of the blue mosaics will be added to the bathroom walls above the tile for color. The SDPI, the county did respond to the SDPI, and the engineering firm is answering the questions concerning the structural, landscape buffers, easements, parking, access, and South Florida water management questions. I filled out and submitted an APR, which is an amended parking request. An amended parking request is necessary when you are going to add any additional recreational services that would require people to drive up and park so they could use them. Since we have a captive audience, we're asking the county to say that there wouldn't be any additional traffic because people can get here by bicycle, by walking, and that additional parking spaces are not necessary. Because if they are, we probably will be denied those specific recreational areas. We await the response to all of this. We expect to have those back at the end of this month. Once it's approved, the pool shade shelter permit will go into production, which is ready to go. The coastal canvas is just waiting on the county to approve the site development plan. And then we can begin the bid process for pickleball and bocce courts if you so desire. The new normal. Business as usual comment doesn't apply anymore, but I think that the staff has done a good job of keeping the systems intact, although loss of revenue in food and beverage, especially in the higher profit area of beverages, beer, wine, and liquor, has hurt the budgeted bottom line. Nicole and Chef usually have 12 staff on the schedule this time of year, full and part-time bartenders, servers, prep, and dish help. This number is now 3. They have assisted in the to-go and food market programs that have been well received by the community. We had over close to 100 meals that we served on Easter, and we prepared those and had those picked up out front. I think some of you actually participated and actually saw me here at that time. Tennis hourly staff. we have one, and that's Dave, and he's working 3 hours a week only. Maintenance staff has been reduced by 25% from 4 full-time to 3. And normally those people would come in on Saturdays to check the garbage, to clean up, to work on the tennis courts in the morning. They have ceased and desisted all of that. The cost of running the community from an operations administrative standpoint has been stressful. The staff is on high alert as we've reduced hours and number of people. The fixed cost of labor and associated payroll expenses and benefits have been reduced but not eliminated. All clubs in the area are struggling, as we are, but they all are committed to keeping their key staff in place, knowing that when they open, business has to be back to normal with people in place that can do the job. Turnover is very costly. Sterling Oaks is one of 150 more clubs and communities in the area vying for these qualified people. Other projects, Alan and his crew are finishing up the lake erosion project in Wildcat, and they should be finished by month end. They'll tackle the west parking lot and the decayed landscaping timbers along the north mortar wall, which he's started to do some work on that. He's been busy with many of the usual repairs and emergencies that crop up, things breaking constantly and needing his attention. I will tell you that today he's been working with the TEM group in making sure that we have access and conduit for the wiring to put in the locks and all of the access control on the pool. The next large project down the road is the continued road resurfacing. You know that we did almost all the roads in the condos. The original report, which was an engineering report done by Ardeman back in the day, suggested that several of the roads within the community were at a 20-something year point. The cracking had created some issues, and that continued neglect would result in higher costs of repairing and resurfacing those roads in the future. So the board went ahead and started the work in the condominiums. And this next phase would be from the gatehouse, going down to the intersection, turning right and going to the back gate. Those are the worst roads in the community at this point in time. So I'm going to be working on trying to get some qualified bids. I have asked Jeff Nunner, who's currently working with Old Hickory. They're repaving all, I think, 7 miles of their roads in one fell swoop. And he's going to be working with them as their owner's rep. I've asked him to submit a quote to us to assist us as being an owner's rep for qualified bidders and to review the engineering specs once we get those. All of these, of course, are funded by general reserves and will not impact any of the capital or expense or operating cash. That's my report.
Okay, any questions of Mark?
Just
Yeah.
one.
Yes, Jeff.
Back to the SDPI. Are we in any jeopardy of not being able to put a cover on the
pool? No.
no,
No, that one did not receive any questions except for they
okay,
wanted.
that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
This really applies to bocce and pickleball.
It applies to the parking and easement and setbacks on pickleball and bocce only, yes.
That's all. Thank you.
Brownie, then Lanning.
Okay, Mark, a couple of times I've walked around the clubhouse and probably associated with the cabana bathrooms. The pool main gate has been wide open. Small children playing in the playground. Could we do
Nope.
something to make sure that
Playground's locked.
well, I've seen children playing in it. Regardless,
They might have jumped
That
the
pool-
fence.
regardless, there was no workers there, and twice I've been by, and that main gate to the pool right off the parking lot is wide open. Could we
I'll
make
make
sure it stays locked when there's no one there?
You got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lanning.
Thanks, Lanny.
Mark, where are we on addressing speeding? With more walkers and bikers in the community, I've seen speeding actually becoming a worse issue than ever before, and I'm very concerned about the safety of all of us out there on the roads.
Two things. One is I've asked Collier County Sheriff about placing speed signs, you know, the kind that you see out on the streets that says your speed is X. They are not going to give us those because we have private roads. And of course, it brings up the thing, well, can we bring the cops in here? They said, no, not until we sign over a fairly restrictive document that allows them access to the community. However, and Paul, you can back me up on this. I think that it's been looked at before that the Collier County Sheriffs require the roads to be DOT certified, and that ours in some areas are not, and that the kind of configuration and restructuring of the roadways to conform to DOT Collier County guidelines would be astronomical.
Millions of dollars, millions.
Okay.
But
So,
I thought we were gonna rent some of those speed detectors.
There's no, I don't have any rentals on those speed detectors. The only thing I can do is we looked at buying those, but right now the discretionary spending was kind of in a holding pattern. So I haven't really looked at that. They're about $4,500 for a solar battery backed up, flashing your speed is X sign that we can place in different areas. But I didn't have we kind of took a time out on spending right now, especially out of the capital.
Let me address your concern also. To some degree, the solution is eminent. If you recall, the community well-being was one of the high priorities in the strategic plan. And what we learned from the survey is 71% support addressing the speeding issue. And it's come up as one of the key issues for the strategic plan. So when we get together next week, that will be one of the areas that we will begin to address. And as I mentioned earlier, it's the tough part because we have to come up with some key action items to make things happen. So we will begin in earnest on that particular issue. So it's not like we're trying to bury it or making excuses. It will be one of the things we'll concentrate on.
Okay.
Linda.
I was just gonna say, can we have a nice big sign on the entrances mentioning that watch out for the bicyclists? Just a reminder when people come in, slow down, bicyclers.
Well, I
And
think we'll
walkers.
have a whole lot of suggestions once we put our heads together on these issues. Like I say, we have 8 key issues. That happens to be one of them. So we'll give it plenty of attention and we can work it out at that level. But
We do
we're
have
not
some
gonna do it
bulletin
today.
boards. No, but we have bulletin boards around a community that don't have anything on them anymore, so.
We also know that there's 2 or 3 individuals that we probably can focus right in on that are some of the main culprits that we've heard about.
Yeah, in combination with that, we have an issue. One of the key factors is rental reform. And as we've learned in the past, many renters who are just here on an ephemeral basis have little respect for our rules and regulations. So hopefully we can have a 2-pronged attack here. At any rate, where are we now? Mark, any other questions of Mark? Okay, let's move to what will probably take a good chunk of the meeting, and that's the reopen plan. So I'd like you to take a look at it in your packet. And let's keep in mind that we've given social distancing and CDC guidelines the highest priority as we look this plan over. Lanny.
Can I give the tennis report first since it impacts on this?
Let's do this first, then we'll do the tennis report. It kind of weaves together. So let's
Okay.
do this first. Now, let's get your reaction to this. This is a fluid document. It can change. And I think the important part here that the community can buy is the fact that this is a staged, phased reopening. Not going to happen bang all at once, but we're going to move in phases, just as the president recommends in terms of his Reopen America plan. It kind of follows that same pattern. So with that, we'll get started after Brownie raises a question.
Yeah. Well, I looked at it, and Paul, you correctly were right in that it's probably a good plan because I'm not happy with it, and Eric's probably not happy with it. So it's probably a good compromise. But I want to point out a major inconsistency in it. Okay. For the tennis, we're proposing single play every other court. For the pickleball, which is a smaller court, we're proposing doubles and using both courts. Big inconsistency. So, I mean, don't understand how we have that inconsistency.
Look at this as a working document. If we have those inconsistencies, let's address them here and now.
Well, that's a major inconsistency. Okay. I'm addressing, that's why I'm bringing it up. We either need to change the pickleball to singles, one court, or change the tennis to doubles and use every court. I mean,
Okay, Jack,
how can we have it more restrictive when we have much smaller area?
That's fine. Let me repeat. This is not carved in stone. That's why we're dealing with this together. So if there are issues we have to change here, let's do it now. Jack, how do you respond to Brownie?
Well, I didn't write the tennis plan, and I helped construct the pickleball plan. I work with a bunch of people in the community that play pickleball, and we thought our plan was socially responsible. I had nothing to do with the tennis plan. And if you think the tennis plan is more restrictive than it could have been, then maybe we should look at that. I'm open to considering something different.
Well, Jack, I would certainly agree to go to your plan for tennis. Okay.
Who wrote the tennis plan?
I don't know.
Well, somebody does.
Well, essentially, we got it from Lanny. Do you want to comment, Lanny?
No, this is not the proposal from the tennis committee. This was an early draft, but it's not what they decided on.
Oh,
Okay. What do you have as a more recent proposal?
The more recent proposal for everyone to look at is on page 15 of our board packet. And it would have opening every other court for singles play, ball machine used by one person, immediate family members playing together in private lessons starting tomorrow, April 24th, because these are activities that never should have been stopped, that they have no risk for anyone. And that it would then be expanded on May 1st to doubles play, ball machine used by more than by one or two people, as well as immediate family members, and group lessons up to 3 players. Then opening on May 8th, all courts for singles and doubles play, unrestricted ball machine use, and unlimited group lessons. And then not opening for normal play until later to be determined. We had developed some safer guidelines, but USTA has come out with some that are more extensive. So we would recommend using those in addition to the specifics that we have about turning off our water fountains, et cetera. If pickleball wants to use every court, we're happy to use every court also. But I agree with Brownie that it should be parallel.
Okay, let's do one thing at a time. And I think we'll come back to pickleball. I can, in the spirit of compromise here, I can accept this phased, staged plan that's being proposed with the exception of the opening date. I think tomorrow is way too soon. And I would stick to our original plan of May 4. And as of May 4, we open up with this plan as you've described it. That I can buy and I can accept.
So opening up what I have on May 1, opening the courts up for singles and doubles play starting on May 1.
I'm saying your phase 1 to start on May 4.
That doesn't mean you have to stretch the other ones out. I think you could probably start
Right.
start phase 1 and 2 on May 1 and start,
Right.
5/8.
Well,
Five-eight.
that's just what I'm asking. If you're gonna push it back a week, then why not do phase 1 and 2 on May 1? And
I-
then stick with May 8 for phase 3.
I would prefer to stage it with a softer opening rather than crowding this together. We're going to convince the community that we're doing this in a phased manner to see how phase 1 goes and then move to phase 2 and 3 and ultimately 4. I think we need a little time for that to happen. I don't want to rush this. I think the community will buy it if they sense that we're monitoring what's going on and things are safe. So
Well,
that's
that's
my only
why-
concern.
Well,
If
that's
I-
why I would, I want to clarify, I know board members got sent some of this, but I want to clarify that the governor's office did indicate that tennis was never on the list of inappropriate activities. Tennis was always considered in Florida to be an essential activity as long as precautions were taken. So that people living in the same home, sleeping together, there is zero risk, additional risk for them to play tennis together, or and zero risk to the community that they're playing together. So that is almost a phase 0 because it's no step whatsoever. So it doesn't sound right to me to
Well,
have.
I agree with what you're saying. I know all the reasons why we should do this. I understand all of that. I'm not arguing with you about that.
Okay,
Recommending is that we start it all on May 4th.
Yeah, let's keep this.
okay, but then,
Let's keep this in perspective. What we're arguing about here is 10 days, right?
Right.
Let me poke in here a bit. As of the present time, there are 15 clubs that are open fully.
17, Terry.
17, there's an additional 2 that
Yes.
are open now between Lee County and Collier County and have been for some time. And I want to point out specifically, when the USTA decided on their closure, you have to remember where the USDA is housed. The biggest USDA facility happens to be near Forest Hills. So for them to come back and say that they wanted to close everything based on what was in New York City was probably true, but was not true for the rest of the country.
I'd like to get back to the point of being parallel. If you're, we have a different problem with tennis in that our members are having to go and pay to play at other places because they're open and we're not. And it certainly isn't appropriate to have these people who are paying us and paying another club to not be able to play at the same level that pickleball is playing. So that there's no way that tennis players are going to accept starting slower than pickleball. And I think there's good reason to start slow. I totally agree with that, but there's no reason not to educate everyone that activities between people living in the same home is at no additional risk to anyone. The governor never meant to stop them, and that we will be much better off in terms of not having tennis players suing us for collections of money if we open to at least that level of play sooner.
Well, no one's arguing any of the stance of the USTA or your comments here about social distancing and CDC guidelines. We understand all of that. Chap, we'll get to you in a second. Let me finish my comment, then we'll go to you.
Okay.
So again, I want to bring this back to the community. And we are not the board for the tennis committee. We're the board for Sterling Oaks. And what I'm trying to get through to you is that it is my sense that the community will buy this plan. They will not like it entirely, but they will buy it if we do a gradual phase-in period and we don't do it right away. We still need to hear from the governor. We still need to hear from Collier County. And I believe anything prior to May 4 is too soon. Anything prior than 4 phase step-ins is too little. Chap.
I'm going to offer a compromise to this whole situation. And first of all, I just want to go back to Lanny's proposal as written. I'll have a tough time. I know we're going to have a really tough time if we open up tennis tomorrow. Tough time from the standpoint of backlash from the community. Therefore, what I would like to propose is that we accept Lanny's plan with 2 modifications. Phase 1 slated for April 24th goes to May 4th. That's the first modification. Second modification is that we open up all courts just like pickleball would like to do. That'd be the second modification. With those 2 modifications.
What's your first modification?
May 4th.
May 4th.
All courts.
All courts. That's the second modification. That way we don't have any controversy between tennis and pickleball and
Bocce.
Okay, let's go to Lynn.
Well, I don't want to sound petty here, but if a couple who lives together and sleeps together, I guess, happen to be tennis players, fine. But there are people who play doubles that are not married couples or living together or sleeping together, and they would like to play doubles too. And I just don't think this is a time to separate out people in the tennis community and say, you can play with your husband, but your husband can't play with anybody else and blah, blah, blah. I just wonder how fair that sounds to a person who doesn't play tennis.
I think.
Well, if we went with that, I would move my phase-in period to June.
Well, that's really, okay.
I think Chap just made the suggestion to open everything up May 4th. And
Yeah.
that,
No, he didn't say everything.
well, he
Lanny,
said,
go
he
ahead.
said doubles.
No, he didn't.
As I understand it,
doubles. I said
What is
accept Lanny's
what's currently
plan.
written as April 24th is now going to be May 4.
That's my
What's
suggestion.
currently written as May 1 would be May 8. Or
No,
does it-
it'd be
Well, here's my recommendation.
either 10 days or 2 weeks later.
In fact, I have 2 recommendations. First recommendation, I would put Paul Barris on tomorrow. Put him on the courts, court 1, with only one person as a lesson. This will give us an opportunity to see how this social distancing works. And we could take a look at that and start him immediately. The second recommendation I would make is leave it to me and Mark to decide when we move to the next phase. The other alternative is we call a board meeting, come back together after 48-hour notice and decide when we move to the next phase.
Why can't we move to the next, I mean, if you're gonna do that, then we'd have to vote later on pickleball and that sort of thing too. Why not May 4, like you've talked about, for tennis phase 1, and as I have listed. But I also have another question. I've been walking a lot in the evening, and not an evening goes by without seeing what I understand are called driveway cocktail hour parties.
Right.
That are not approved of by the governor, because they're not physical activities. They're social activities that are not permitted. And I understand, in fact, even that several board members have been involved in these parties. And I don't understand, why are we permitting these, but not permitting the governor's approved physical activities?
Because our job is to govern the common areas, and the tennis, pickleball, and the pool and bocce, and these areas are our purview. What happens on someone's driveway is not our purview. And
the
I would
our
disagree
patio-
with you that it is in fact permitted by the governor, especially this governor, in terms of getting together within a 10-foot distance.
But the 6-foot distance is only for necessary activities. That's not a necessary activity. And the patio has been used most evenings by people, including executive committee members.
Well, that I'm
So-
not aware of.
You're aware of it now. The community, by and large, has been ignoring, the governor's requirements, except for our physical activities. And so
I think
this
we're getting
idea,
distracted here. I don't think this applies to this reopen plan at this point. And the other thing is, I would disagree with you in terms of what's going on there. But let's get back to the plan itself. And I put
Okay.
2 proposals in front of you. I haven't heard a
Okay.
reaction.
okay, I believe the tennis committee will be extremely supportive of number 1, Paul Barris, starting tomorrow with singles lessons. I think it is critical for us to be able to come out of this meeting today, letting tennis players know a starting date for the phase-in. I understand that you may
We
not
will
want
have
to.
that.
Well,
Now,
no,
I'm
you
more
said you want-
concerned, I'm not as concerned about what the tennis committee thinks as what the community feels and what these other board members feel about that proposal.
Well, I understand, but I'm telling you one aspect. The tennis committee represents all 300 or so tennis players, so that I'm giving you some feedback there. Because, as I mentioned before, we have players trying to figure out, are they going to be buying a monthly membership someplace else? Are they just going to pay by the day? What are they going to do at these other clubs where they're playing? We need to give them a date, or they're going to be leaving us, and they're going to go ahead and buy annual memberships someplace else. And that's going to be devastating. So I think that we need to give them at
Well-
least a date for phase 2.
Okay, but you didn't answer my question. You answered my question about starting Paul Barris. I haven't heard from anyone else. I'm concerned about this whole community and what they think. And all of you represent the community. I want to hear from you. My second question was, will you trust myself and Mark to decide when we move to the next phase? We will start on May 4th, and maybe we'll move sooner than you expect. Maybe not. We have to determine how things are going.
Okay, so I think I misunderstood. You're saying that what I have as April 24th will start as on May 4th. I thought you were waiting on that, but you're
No.
saying phase 1 would be May 4.
May 4, right.
Okay, and then, but you're not willing to give a date for phase 2.
I didn't say that.
Okay, I'm
I'm saying 2 things.
okay,
Mark and I can decide when we move to phase 2, or we can set a date now for phase 2, or we can pull this board together and come to a determination through a board meeting.
I am appreciative that you are proposing May 4 for tennis phase 1. I believe that it will be better for everyone in the community to have a date for phase 2 also, so that there's an expectation of what's going to happen at a week, 2 weeks, 10 days, whatever, so that there's not a fear that it's going to be 2 days later. So I think that it will both be beneficial for tennis players and for non-tennis players to have a date for phase
I have no
1
problem
and
with that.
2.
I have no
Okay.
problem with that. Let's go to Chap and then Jack.
Well, I'm prepared to, well, I guess I'd say make a motion, but what I've concluded is the following. Number one, we should immediately open up tennis for Paul Barris and a lesson taker, starting tomorrow. All right. Number two,
Caveat,
number two,
the nets are down, by the way, just FYI. It's gonna take a little
well,
bit of time to get it all back
starting is ASAP. Let's put it that way. If it's tomorrow, fine. If it's the next day, fine.
Only one court.
All
Look,
right. Number two, we accept Lanny's plan commencing with phase 1 on May 4th
3 singles every other court.
with
No,
every
it's
court
one court.
being utilized. Okay?
well, then that's going to change the pickleball. So you're
No,
also.
it's not.
Yes, it will. We're going to make it consistent.
I said with allowing every court to be utilized. That makes it consistent with
Oh,
pickleball.
okay. I didn't hear that.
All right. The further phases are tentatively scheduled for 10 days after what Lanny has written down,
Or sooner.
or sooner, subject to board approval. That's what I think we should do. And everybody's reasonably happy. Those that don't want it opened at all, which is a huge number in this community, will at least understand we're not doing it tomorrow. We're doing it with restrictions. We're doing it on a phased basis. And away we go. That's what I think we should do.
Brownie,
Okay, let's look at where we are. We've lost 35 members. We're probably, if we even make it May the 4th, we're probably going to lose another 20. We're going to lose a lot of income. We could ruin the tennis program. And look what we're really doing. We've got the residents going out and playing in other communities and coming back. Now, you can say maybe that's not morally right, but most people feel that play tennis or, you know, and we play tennis, you can argue any of the things that some of the people are doing are maybe not the best, okay? Everybody has their own thing they want to do. But now we're going to send people out to other communities. They're going to be paying money. They're going to drop here.
So what do you
Run the
propose?
I'm still talking. We're going to run the tennis program. So why do we want to do that? If other communities we can go out and play tennis, then they're going to come back. If anything, we're going to bring people back. The other thing, look at the gate. If we're really serious about this, I worry a lot more about those 10 vendors that I counted this morning that came in and went and working in people's houses inside with the houses. I worry more about those cocktail parties. 2 doors down yesterday, there were 6 or 8 people in the driveway and they were not 6 feet apart, okay? So I know you say it's community, Paul, but we still got to look at the community. You know, the community's worrying about tennis players. I think we're all responsible. None of the tennis players want to get the virus. No one wants to give it to anyone. Treat us like adults. Let us go out on the court and play, stay away from each other. Maybe we wait to May the 4th, but let's don't ruin our tennis program and send people out to other places. I'll be very frank, that if my membership was expiring in April, expires in July, I would not renew it at this point. We would lose that income. So we're kind of shooting our, it's kind of almost like the national situation. You got to look at the financial part as well as the other, and there is an impact, but it just doesn't make sense to force people to go out elsewhere and lose them in our tennis program.
I understand what you're saying. I have much more faith in our tennis program. I don't think it's going to suffer to that extent that you're suggesting, number one. Number two, we are offering a reopen plan. We are offering that. We're not trying to constrict it and say that you just can't play. It's just going to be a phased in period to protect everybody, the tennis players as well as people in this community. So,
If we're going to
as I
lose,
said, this is a compromise plan. Now,
If
we
we're
could
gonna
go the
lose-
other way and say, let's not open at all. Let's not even think about this till July. But we're not saying that. We have a reopen plan, and I think we're making some headway here.
if
Yeah.
Well,
if we're going to lose, I'll just make up a number. 75 tennis members. We're going to lose them whether or not it's April 24th or May 4th. Period.
Well, I'm not as worried about that.
I said if.
Right.
Doesn't make any difference.
Let's go to Mark.
First of all, of the 34 people that Paul Barris mentioned in his, when we start in November, December, January, and February, we have people that arrive in the community that pay for monthly memberships to be a tennis member. By the time they go home, they are not paying that monthly membership any longer. Historically, Lanny, and you can probably confirm this, that in the months of January, February, and March, we spike with monthly memberships as renters and other transient snowbirds come through the door. And then once we get to May, that drops right back down into the plateau of the regular memberships, because we are no longer having those snowbirds and renters on property to pay for those monthly memberships. Is that correct?
That's correct. I can give some specifics. Our best comparison year is 2018. We lost April members last year because of red tide. But in 2018, we had 8 individual monthly memberships and 4 family monthly memberships, which came to $6,080. I expect that's a good figure of what we're going to be losing this month. I think next month that with this plan, with full doubles play not happening until May 24th, we will lose all people who are up for renewal in May, because they're not going to pay for a month of doubles when they can only play for a week.
You've already said it. How many times you
so
want?
let me try something now, okay? So if we agree to let Paul start tomorrow and have tennis start on the 4th of May with all courts, is that a problem?
Say that again.
What I propose. Paul starts tomorrow. May 4th, tennis opens, all courts.
Pickleball opens all the courts.
With phase one, with the phases.
Well,
Yeah,
we still got the singles doubles question,
Right.
question.
yeah.
Well, that's when you get into
Yeah, right.
not,
With
no
Chap's
doubles.
idea that, I guess with Chap's idea, doubles would start on May 14th.
We understand that. How many times you want me to say it?
There's no logic in having doubles in pickleball if we don't have doubles in
said it.
tennis.
Oh.
The distances are shorter no matter what you do.
It makes it worse.
So that we'd have all courts doubles play and unlimited group lessons on May 14th. Is that the current proposal?
I wouldn't
Does
say
this-
unlimited,
Well, Paul never has more than
but, right.
8.
You want me to
Yeah,
tell
but just
you,
the usual.
you want me to give you the proposal again? Just so we don't get lost?
I think we need to
Well-
handle pickleball and tennis together.
All
Jack
right.
had a, Jack
This
had
handles
a
it.
different proposal.
We need to handle the two together.
And Jack had a different one, I think.
And what was your modification, Jack?
I guess I'm not sure anymore, but to let Paul Barris start lessons tomorrow or Monday, whenever he can get them started.
Yep.
And then have everything open in whatever phase we call it on Friday, May the 1st. And then
May 4th.
do Monday, May the 4th, and then phase 3 on Monday, May the 11th, or some number like that.
So it seems to me that I agree with Brownie. If you're going to have doubles in pickleball from the get-go, then you ought to have doubles in tennis from the get-go on May.
Well,
We'll
I
only
don't
do-
know. You're talking many more players in tennis.
Yeah,
And
but you got, you've got 3 times the amount of space.
You're talking about a third the distance, Paul.
All right,
All right.
so
then let's talk about tennis, and then we'll apply the pickleball rules to the tennis rules.
Can you play pickleball singles?
You can't.
Yes.
yeah, you can, but nobody's young enough to be able to do it anymore.
Well,
Except-
that's true for tennis. 90% play doubles.
All
Right.
right, listen, gang, this is not going to last forever. We've got a phase-in period here, and we have a community to think about. And it's not just about tennis and pickleball players, it's about the entire community and what they can stomach. And I'm suggesting to you that this plan may work. I'm not sure that it will, but it may work. And to rush it and to advance it, it will not work.
Well, I'll tell you
I,
one thing that I can say, the 17 clubs that are open and that have been open for most of the time that we've been closed have had zero infections from the pandemic.
Well, Terry, I don't want to go there. This is not making any sense because I can give you 100 other counter proposals in terms of why we shouldn't open. So let's not even go there.
Lanny, where
Let's
are we?
accept the fact that we have a reopen plan on the table. Let's go with that.
I'm gonna read.
I think that the compromise that makes no one happy is to allow Paul to start teaching single people tomorrow. On May 4th, the tennis and pickleball courts will open for singles. On May, and then Paul can increase players to 3. On May 14th, tennis and pickleball will open for doubles.
Where does the 14th come out? That's a Thursday or some strange number like that.
It's 7-day increments.
Chap wanted 10 days.
Well, I don't care what the day it is. It's either.
I would do it,
Make it a week.
make it a week.
Yeah, make it a week, May 11th.
Okay, so the 4th, the 11th, the 4th is singles, pickleball, and tennis, all courts.
Yes,
The 11th is tennis and pickleball doubles. And I
yes.
think that
I work
that's,
with it.
that's stepwise. And Paul's lessons increased to 3 people on the 4th and his usual on the 11th. And then, and this continues all the other precautions, including no guests.
Right,
Yes. That's reasonable.
right.
I think that's a good compromise.
I'd like to do it sooner, Lanny. I am really afraid if tomorrow some of our residents who don't want us to open at all see packed tennis courts and packed pickleball courts, they're going to go crazy. So
I
this-
said, I think it's a good compromise.
Good.
Get
And
on.
I think this would be a good compromise and Paul could still have his discretion to change the timetable one way or the other. Depending
Paul,
on what happens.
can I get in?
Lynn,
Yes, I would like to know how this is tying in with the pool and the clubhouse.
Well, we haven't
That's
We
a
haven't
good
gotten there
question,
yet.
because this plan incorporates all the amenities. So we're going to have to spend some time as we leave tennis and pickleball to look at these other areas. But I think tennis and pickleball are the most complicated things. So let's clean that off the slate, and then we'll move to these other amenities.
Doesn't it mean tennis, pickleball, and bocce?
No,
Yes.
Bocce doesn't want to open, right?
Well, but so that doesn't mean somebody can't use the bocce courts just because bocce doesn't want to open.
They just, no, they don't, it's not that, no, they didn't say they didn't want to open. They said that they didn't want to be given
They
the.
didn't want to
responsibility.
recommend it.
Yeah, they didn't want to have the
Well,
responsibility.
let me take a chance here and speak for them. And I think I'm right. I may be wrong, so I'll clarify that. But I think they're suggesting that it's too early to open anything in the community. They want no part of opening bocce or any other amenity, and would prefer that we wait at least a month to do anything.
You know,
So
Paul, I'm not
I'm
sure
fairly
that's what
certain
they
that
told
that's
us.
what bocce is saying. So in the interim, that was the leadership of the bocce, but we're going to move forward on this plan, and we're going to put some things in the plan that suggest to the community that we've given this some thought. We have their health and safety in mind, and we're going to put some rules together.
Bocce is a little bit different. It's more difficult to be 6 feet apart in bocce. You know, if you watch what they do and how they play, I'll be very frank, I think to be 6 feet apart and doing the bocce with the way they are would be quite difficult. Pickleball and tennis, I think you can be apart. So I think bocce is a little bit different as far as keeping people apart.
So
Let's
I'll
clean
ask a
up
medical.
this tennis and pickleball situation. Then we can move to bocce, and maybe like fitness, our recommendation is to not even open fitness for a long time. So we have these other issues to deal with. So let's clarify what we've said so far with the tennis and pickleball opening.
I'm going to write it up.
Lenny, you want to repeat it?
Yes.
I've been editing the document. You want me to forward it to everybody?
Make a
Um,
motion, Lanny.
Get the
I
motion.
move that we inform the community that based on the governor's proclamation, CDC recommendations, and USTA guidance for safer tennis, that effective Friday, April 24th, Court 1 is open for private lessons with these mandatory precautions. And they're the same precautions that we've talked about previously. On May 4th, all tennis courts and all pickleball courts, as well as ball machine use, will open for singles play. Group lessons will be permitted for up to 3 players with the same mandatory precautions.
Let's say only 3 players.
I said for up to 3 players. Why does it have to be 3?
Okay, fine,
Yeah.
fine.
Okay, go ahead.
And then for May 11th, for pickleball and tennis, all courts will open for singles and doubles play, unrestricted ball machine use and unrestricted group lessons with the same additional mandatory precautions. And Suzanne will use the new document from USTA rather than the Safer Tennis that we drafted. And I'll work with Paul to get that out to all tennis players.
I second.
And as we move along with this plan, I hope we're in agreement that the intent will be that we can share this with the community. So I'd like it in a form that they can see, manipulate, and understand. And we can refer them to these articles, particularly the USTA guidelines. I think they will be happy with that. I think they'll feel secure as they read it.
They were just put out last night, so they're available.
Yeah,
Yes,
but the original first proposal was very close to that anyway.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a few additions.
Yeah.
I second the motion.
I did
It's already
already.
been seconded.
Oh. Okay,
Well, I prefer to move along and we pass the entire reopening plan document rather than every individual piece.
I think with the differences, I would like to see us vote on the tennis and pickleball and then go to the next. Otherwise, we'll get back and forth.
I kind of agree with-
Let's close this issue and move on.
Yeah,
I agree with Brownie, Paul.
All right.
I do too.
Okay, so someone read the motion.
Lanny just did.
I can send you what I have typed up, and it would be a motion to approve the stages for pickleball and tennis.
Let me, can I state it back to see if this is the same you said? Can we do it that way?
Yeah, go ahead.
Tomorrow, April the 24th, Paul can do single lessons. May the 4th, singles, all courts for pickleball and tennis. May the 11th, singles and doubles for all courts, pickleball and tennis, with the restrictions that everybody knows. Fountains are off, tables and chairs are moved, and all of those restrictions we talked about, okay? But I think the key thing is those dates.
I
Single-
started.
Oh, and I'm left out also. I'm sorry, on May the 4th, Paul can have up to 3 people in group lessons. And
No.
then
That's correct.
May the 4th, he gets group lessons up to 3.
up to 3, yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then on May the 11th, he can have a
Right.
normal number he has,
Normal,
which is still
yeah.
pretty small. It's still pretty small.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
There's a
He
second.
already seconded, right?
And,
yeah.
and I started with the motion with pointing out that this would be communicated to the community. So that was in my initial motion.
Good. Okay, Cezanne, you got all that? Okay. All in favor?
Raise your hands.
Okay, we have unanimous approval. Thank you very much. Let's
Thank you,
move it
Lanny.
along.
what?
Let's move it along to the rest
No.
of the plan. Where are we? Now, pickleball is covered. Bocce.
Yeah, okay.
So, well, let's do fitness because that'll be easier. With the fitness program, I think we should close it until we all get back together and have a sense that it is appropriate to open fitness, and we may have a phase-in period. Now, maybe what we do is turn it over to the fitness project team to come up with recommendations as to how and when to open.
It's too small to
Planning.
open up now.
I agree. Lanny,
Why can't we allow, 4 people at a time?
because I think it's a hot spot. It's a powder keg. If the minute we open up fitness, I think we'll get a
Sweating.
reaction through the community. They're too close. People go in there and the first thing they see in good times are people taking wipes and wiping down the equipment. And they're very concerned about that to begin with. To open this up under these circumstances, I think will just send panic.
Just help me understand what you're saying. Why is it bad to be wiping down equipment? These are
I'm not
people that,
saying it's bad. I'm saying it's the sensation that you get when you walk in there and you grab a disinfectant wipe. Why are you doing that?
Because you're sweating.
And why
Because-
are you doing that? Why are you wiping down the equipment?
because everyone's been told to do it.
Yeah, why?
These people have good behaviors.
Because it's sweating and people, some of them don't do it. And that puts us at risk.
Exactly. So the point I'm making is, why would we open up an area like that to send panic through the community?
Okay, but COVID is not spread through sweat.
I don't care. You don't understand. It's the
not-
perception
it's not-
that people
Wait a
have.
minute, Lanny. But if you get something on a piece of metal, it stays on there for a good portion of time and that can transfer. So you can't say, I know it's not by sweat, but
Okay,
suppose somebody wipes their noses and touches something and it stays on for, 2 hours.
3 days.
Problem.
Okay.
I look at the
I-
main problem is a small space.
You're right. That's it.
It's all of that. It's all
okay,
of that.
I just throw out that there, a lot of things will be opening for limited number, right now, many things are open for a limited number of people. And I think that we shouldn't ignore the needs of that component of the community. Maybe today isn't the right day, but at some point we need to think about permitting a small number of people to be in the fitness center at a time. Other communities do have their fitness centers open too.
Who's gonna
So,
police that source though?
Let's go to Michael.
I was just gonna say, there may be some other communities that have their fitness centers open. Most of the ones like through NCH have remained closed. And I think we should probably follow their guidance or at least pay attention to when they start to open and what guidance
okay,
they use. When they
sounds
do.
good,
Yeah, I agree.
I agree.
Chap,
sounds good.
I move that fitness remain closed until further notice.
Second.
okay. Terry seconds.
Yes.
All in favor? Okay, you got that, Cezanne? Let's
Terry
move
seconded
to,
that.
I think it was unanimous, but I won't say that for
The
sure.
second was Terry.
Yes.
let's move to bocce. In as much as the leaders of the bocce project team are reluctant to move on this issue, maybe we should postpone that until a certain time. Somebody suggest a time.
One suggestion I've got is pick the May 4th or 11th date to allow bocce and leave it up to the bocce players if they don't want to play. That's the other thing. Everybody has a choice not to do this. If the bocce players aren't comfortable doing it, they don't have to play.
That's a good point. And the other thing too, is that I disagree with you to a certain extent, Brownie. Bocce, when we watch the way it's played now, people are close together because it's a social experience. But if we were to ask them to follow the rules for pickleball and for tennis, they could separate enough. You don't have to stand next to your opponent when you're waiting your turn to roll the ball. And you can sit far enough apart so that it can be safe. So
And you can wear gloves so you can pick up the ball with your gloved hand if you want to, or wipe it.
yes,
if you
I
want
agree
to.
with that, Jack.
Let's go to Michael.
They could actually wear masks in that game as well, because you're not
Sure.
around.
Right. You're not going to sweat.
I have no problem with these suggestions. I
Lindy?
think we need to record the suggestions because I don't want to leave politics out of this. But I think as board members, we have an obligation to this community to set some guidelines and rules for their safety and welfare. We're in charge of that particular common area, and I think they expect us to protect their health and safety. So I think we do need to come up with some guidelines there and not just simply say, play if you want to play at your own risk.
Well,
I don't think people
Well,
appreciate that.
no, I meant
If
that
we
you
use
went,
the same guidelines
yeah,
as we use for tennis, and you keep the social distance 6 feet apart, wear gloves so that the balls don't come in contact with your hands, and make sure that people either stand farther apart or sit farther apart. We can accept these people to be able to do this in a mature way, and we can afford to do that. And the guidelines that we set can be minimal here because it's not the same as changing sides in tennis and in pickleball. It's a little bit easier to do.
Well, I would-
Well, let's say this, John Mihok and Mark, can you two get together and come up with some guidelines for bocce? John is the liaison to the bocce group.
but
I
there's some
think-
on the paper already. that
I
look
put some in the
appropriate.
paper. I would think that those would be sufficient for this.
I mean, I look at those as fine, okay?
Yeah.
And when I
we can-
said
we
leave
can-
it up to
can
them, I
hash
meant
it
with
around.
those restrictions, with those restrictions. If you want me to read them, bring your own
I've
water.
got them. How about
Okay.
a timeline? When do we start all this?
Sounds like May the 11th.
Okay,
Why not May 4th?
I
We
would
should do
say-
May
May
4th,
4th.
just like
May
everybody
4th is
else.
fine.
I would say May 4th, when we start the first pickleball and the
Good
tennis.
idea.
All right, I
That way
move,
okay,
everybody's equal.
Chap.
Okay.
Chap. Oh,
I'm-
Chap, you look
move
so
we-
concerned there.
Huh?
You look
I
so
move
worried.
The first part of this we haven't discussed, but I move that we open one bocce course on May 4th with the following guidelines, A, B, C, D, E, whatever they are.
Yeah,
Okay,
and both courts on May the 11th. That would be consistent with tennis and pickleball.
Yeah,
Except
that
for
was.
those courts are all, 15, 20 feet apart to begin with.
Okay. Cezanne, you've got that?
One on May 4th,
One on May 4th,
both
both
on
of
May
them on May
11th.
11th, with the 4 restrictions on the list.
Lanning,
Just a question. I'm just trying to understand, why are we saying they can't have all courts? Because the others have all courts.
This,
I don't know, I think it's more to make, I think it's more to make us look
because
more cautious.
we
Let's
have all
keep in
courts,
mind-
but it's single.
let's keep in mind if the bocce leadership
They don't want to do
had their
anything.
way, they probably wouldn't open till June or July.
But
So
some
I think
players
that-
may, but some players may want to play.
Yeah, maybe.
So
But we need to take direction from their leadership.
we'll put the balls in the box on May the 4th.
But wanted to answer that question. The reason why is that on the tennis, we have more room. On the bocce, it's a little bit different. So, I think we should open one court and then open 2, kind of the same philosophy, okay?
Perhaps one of the restrictions for bocce should be to limit spectators.
Yeah,
Because that's where the people.
Well, that
will
goes
get-
for all 3 of these, okay, really. We should limit that for all of them. I was,
That's true.
I was assuming that was a
Lindia.
given. I was assuming that was a
Oh.
given.
Paul, we've got an hour left on our meeting time. I don't know if I can extend it or not.
Okay,
So I think we got to
let's
get.
go to
moving
Lindia and then we'll try to,
now.
just very quickly, is there any reason you can't have both courts open with singles on bocce for May 4th and all courts open for singles and doubles on May 11th? Just follow the same.
Oh, yeah. I didn't realize there were singles and
Let's-
doubles in bocce.
Much simple.
You can play singles and bocce.
Oh, okay, then that's a good
Yeah.
idea then. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's even more deliberate. I like that.
I do too.
Okay.
okay,
This is scary.
does someone have the motion?
Well, it's open bocce with singles, May the 4th,
One court.
Both courts.
all courts, open May 11th with singles or doubles with the 4 restrictions on the list here.
Both courts.
Yes,
Is May 4th, Ronnie, one court or both courts?
both.
It would be both courts on the both
4th.
time.
Only
would be-
singles.
Yeah, okay,
Be
that's
both
fine.
courts on the 4th, but singles. One court, both courts on the 11th, singles and doubles.
Fine,
The same as tennis and pickleball.
Yep.
good.
Okay, any further discussion?
I need a second on that motion, please.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Lindia seconds, all in favor? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Let's go to pool and food and beverage and clubhouse, Mark.
First
Oh,
of
boy,
all,
these are complicated.
the pool is not going to open until the bathrooms are finished.
So that's good.
And when that happens, I'm not quite sure.
Can we
Because if
put
they
a
close
anticipated date?
May 14th.
Okay,
I just received the pool opening procedures from Pelican Sound. Says pools are for swimming only. There's no lounging on the pool deck. You can't bring any of your own furniture. The restrooms are open. You can only use it for 1 hour. They actually have that, they have to make a reservation, but I don't really understand how they can
controlling numbers.
control that, because these guys are, you know, the pools, because it's gonna have to apply to Wildcat as well.
Right.
Now, Wildcat bathrooms, everything's going down there. Wildcat could open up ahead of time if they wanted to. I don't know what you'd want to do about the social distancing and in the guidelines, or who would police it and maintain the integrity of that system. So I don't know if you want to just wait until the 14th on that as well.
Chap,
Mark, given the construction that's going on, what other clubs are doing as far as you know? What do you think would be the appropriate position for us to take now on April 23rd as it relates to the pool?
It is closed.
All right, so
I don't think you can open up the pool deck, because then you'd have to make sure that the bathrooms are open in towards the fitness center. We don't have the lock on that door yet. So you'd effectively be opening the downstairs to the clubhouse to all users.
So the position right now is that pool remains closed until completion of construction, at which time we'll revisit it.
I think so.
Well,
Yeah,
if the-
because by then maybe we can keep things at half capacity. You know, maybe it's only allowed 50 on the deck, but on the weekends, on a Sunday afternoon, I mean, without us having somebody completely policing that and counting the people on the deck and then saying, no, you can't come in, and then telling somebody that's been in the pool for an hour that they have to leave, is going to be a.
So I propose.
John Mihok.
So
If the only reason for not opening the big pool is the renovation, I would be inclined to say we could open up the Wildcat pool as long as we have the proper oversight and restrictions in place. If there's no other reason than renovation, then I think we can open up the Wildcat pool.
I agree with John.
Let me ask one question about that, John.
Let's go to Lanny first, then we'll come to Brownie.
Okay.
I have a suggestion for monitoring time and the number of people in the pool. I think that by making it easy for homeowners to monitor themselves by, for example, putting up a chalkboard where the appropriate number of spaces are there for whichever pool it is. I don't know how many is going to be correct for Wildcat, but it would have a space for name, for start time, and then they'd erase their name when they left. And that way others there can see if somebody's been there longer than they're supposed to be. It could be right by the gate so that they could, you know, remind each other, hey, it's my turn to come in. And that would be a way to give people an opportunity to do their lap swimming, you know, when the big pool's open, and yet not crowd the pool.
Well, I think that's a good idea. And I also think that we have a lot of deputies in Wildcat that will,
You know, I was thinking the same thing, John.
yep,
We could deputize some people.
yep.
Yeah.
There are pool deputies.
Yes.
John, I was next. You might have answered my question. My question was, if we open up the Wildcat pool and the other pool's not open, then people could maybe start bringing their friends. And does Wildcat really have a policy? You couldn't bring, I live in Sanctuary Point, that I couldn't come visit you and go to the pool. So, but if I like Lanny's idea, maybe a chalkboard. If you're going to say 20 people for whatever number for Wildcat, you own the list. If someone else comes, then, if you're the first on the list, you have to leave. But is that a problem with opening the Wildcat and not the other one, that we'll get a lot of other people from other areas?
Well, that's a potentiality, but
Yep, could
let's
be.
remind everyone we're in a period of crisis here too. So
Yeah.
some things can change a bit. Lynn, let's go to you.
Yes, I don't understand why people can't go up to the big pool, even though the bathrooms are being renovated, and go do their exercise. There are many people here that is their exercise. They go in the pool, they do water aerobics, they do their own exercises in the pool. There are others that swim laps. I think you could limit the number of people in the pool and maybe limit it to a half hour. Certainly people can go to
wait a
the
minute.
pool.
Who's going to be doing this?
What do you
want
mean?
me, how much staff do you want me to put on a daily basis to cover
The
the
chalkboard.
hours of operation of the pool, when you guys are telling us that we need to cut staff hours in order to save money?
Use the chalkboard. I
What
don't see
chalkboard?
why people can't swim.
Where are these chalkboards, and what do you got, dry erase boards? We're
I
gonna,
don't know, ask Lanny, she's got.
I'm gonna
But I-
run down to Staples and go grab them and stick
We,
them up.
we have a dry erase board at the pickleball court. I'll loan.
No, I think it's always easy for us to come up with these sports with tennis and pickleball and bocce and all that. But a lot of people, their exercise is swimming.
What
and
happens?
We should-
What happens when we see on the cameras that it's turned into a place where the kids can come up and they're in the pool because they've been locked in the house for all this time and it's 96 degrees out, and now they're all in the pool and the families go, I want my kids to come in. I don't think it's fair that you do this exercising. I have the right to be in the pool as well. And you've got 4, 5, 6 kids, 3 or 4 families.
So
They
let me
all-
ask,
they can all
let me
next
ask
to
a
each other.
question.
Who's
Let's
doing
let's
what?
go to Michael first. He's been waiting.
It's a tough move.
The question I had was, how can we open the pool without bathrooms?
Well, and when construction's going on, it won't be safe.
Right. I'm sure there's some legal requirement. We have to have restrooms at a pool that size.
Let's go to Jack and then Chap.
Okay, so the first question is, we talked about opening the clubhouse on May the 11th for certain aspects or certain things. That would give us a bathroom service for the pool, for instance, okay? But that doesn't solve the problem of an active construction zone at the pool. But so I think I'm in favor of having the pool open when the active construction is complete at the pool, and then we can monitor it and limit it as we see fit.
Chap.
I think we should buy some time here and use the construction as an excuse. Furthermore, I don't have a very high degree of confidence in the willingness of our users of the pool to police themselves with or without chalkboards. Therefore, I move that pools are closed until further notice.
Oh,
Pools are open. How many pools are open, Mark?
Well, let's get a second, then we'll discuss it.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Let's discuss it. Linda asked, and then we'll go to John.
Okay.
Linda asked how many pools are open.
Hold on.
about.
Well, I know that the governor said that pools are not the purview of the government, and it's up to the clubs to decide when to open their pools.
So out of out of about 27, these include Vanderbilt, Worthington, Stonebridge, Countryside, Stony Brook, Spring Run, Kelly Greens, Naples Lakes, Vasari, Copperleaf, Forest Glen, Heritage Oaks, Naples Heritage, Legends. You keep going down the list. There's 7 pools open and 15 are closed.
Okay.
Are there still reciprocals?
There is nobody going to be doing reciprocals as of May 1st that we know of. That because they don't want guests coming in and playing on their facilities yet. A lot of people are waiting either till the lifting of the governor's status, or they're going to wait until June 1st.
Can we readdress this May 11th?
Well, sure, we could do whatever we like. Let's hear from John.
Yeah, Chap, I think you're mixing apples and oranges here.
Probably.
Keeping the big pool closed because of the renovation. You know, the small pool is a different horse of a different color. So I don't think we should lodge those things together just because we can't open the big pool. But if we can open the Wildcat pool safely, then I don't see where we should be bunching them together.
John, all I'm trying to do is use the construction to buy us some time.
Yeah, but we don't need the construction to buy us any time for the Wildcat pool.
Well,
I mean, the Wildcat pool is not overseen.
For whatever reason, I just don't want to open the Wildcat pool.
Well, I disagree with you on that.
That's fine.
Not really under the purview of the Master Association in an odd way. That's their pool. They pay for it. They pay for all everything that's in it. So I don't really know, if Wildcat community wants to do their own thing with their own pool.
Well, Mark, there's no board. We have the responsibility for Wildcat and the
I know.
community as a whole and their safety. So
To some degree, yeah.
So
We don't
Lanny,
monitor
go
on a
ahead.
daily basis. So-
I think opening Wildcat with the provision of these are the rules, and if people can't obey them, then we're not going to be able to open the big pool. Will be a helpful way to teach people that they've got to obey the rules if they want to be using the pool. I think that John's note to us that there are plenty of people that are going to be helping there is great. And I think that we should communicate as part of this that just as we did in our tennis, if you don't obey the rules, you can be suspended. And in this case,
I agree. And John, you think of a deputy or two. Let's go to Chap, then Terry.
All right, I'm going to modify the motion. There's going to be 2 motions. First motion is I move that we keep the main pool closed until further notice.
Due to reservation?
Excuse me?
Due to reservation?
I don't think we have to give them an excuse.
Okay.
It's closed. The second motion will be for Wildcat. I'll leave that up to John to make that motion, whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I make a motion, we open it tomorrow.
Uh,
Or as soon as feasible from Mark and the maintenance crew's standpoint.
Well, let's follow the
Before-
calendar of the reopen plan.
So I
Okay.
don't disagree with the idea to open a pool right away, but I also think that safeguards need to be in place and posted at the pool. So your deputies are working from the same set of rules. And one of the questions I would have is are guests going to be allowed?
No guests.
Well, I'm that's what kind of guest? Like somebody that lives, a friend in Sterling Oaks wants to come to the
Yes.
pool. Is that going to be allowed or not?
Well, that sounds like a resident.
Would you say, Paul? It sounds like a what?
Resident.
But it's not a resident of Wildcat.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I would leave that up to John. I mean, we're in an unusual situation here. So typically.
All I'm saying is we have to create the rules that includes every possibility in this community.
Yeah, I agree.
only Wildcat residents.
I don't think we should do that. I think it's up to if you're gonna limit the number of people at the Wildcat pool to a number, and and I lived in Wildcat, and I had a friend that lives in Sanctuary Point, and he wants to come swim for 15 minutes. I don't think that's a big deal.
Well, right now,
Right now
the,
it is.
right. Is it me or not?
Go ahead, John, then we'll go to Terry, then Lanny.
Okay, right now the rules for using Wildcat is that it's the residents and guests. And I think we could control that from a guest standpoint, as long as they're Sterling Oaks people that are guests of Wildcat and have a realistic number of how many can be in the pool area at any one time. I think that more or less polices itself.
Yeah, and John, you're there. You can kind of monitor what's going on, and if we need to come back together, we can.
Sure.
Let's go to Terry, Lanny, then Chap.
Yeah, I think that where we're headed might be that not only for Wildcat, but for also the large pool, that we remove all furniture, allow no furniture or anything to be brought in to sit on from your house, which means that you're literally going to be in the pool. And once you're done and you're no longer in the pool, you're not going to stand around. You're going to, which would also help to self-limit the amount of people that are going to utilize these facilities during these difficult times.
But if you're gonna open a bar at the pool sometime, then you're gonna need chairs. So
That's a different, that's a
seeing
different
what you're
story.
trying to say, but
Jack, we can't talk about food and beverage because it doesn't exist. That's going to be off limits for quite some time.
We don't have the time today, kids.
you're right.
Find out in 45 minutes, this will be over. I don't have a way of reestablishing the meeting after that point. I think we have to move.
All right, Lanny and then Chap.
I wanted to point out that in previous years, when the main pool was being cleaned or painted or various things, the Wildcat people have been generous and allowed guests from within Sterling Oaks. And I think that if we clarify that the pool is being opened for swimming, not playing, that children who are serious swimmers can swim, but it's not open for playing. And that will enable other residents within Sterling Oaks to do their
Not
exercise.
touching that.
All right, Chap, then Lindia.
Because we got a time issue, we need to make some progress. Let's separate it into two motions. Let's take them one at a time. I move, once again, that the main pool remain closed until further notice.
Second,
Discussion.
Okay, Brownie.
I agree with that, but I think we would be smarter to say until further notice, because of construction, we anticipate probably opening the week of May the 11th.
I
It
agree.
It gives, then it
agree.
gives, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Me too.
And the
Lindia.
only reason I'm bringing this up is because I had a text from someone. If the pool can't open because of the bathroom situation, where do the tennis, bocce, and pickleball players, what are they going to use for bathrooms?
This is a good point. I do have a very hot portalet at the bottom of the, of the parking lot.
We were using our own bathrooms before tennis was closed. We just have to keep doing that.
Well, then if the renovation gets over, we should be able to do that with a pool too then.
Right. Okay, let's see if we can't move this motion. Do we have the motion recorded?
Yes.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Okay,
Lindy, you're
Lynn,
not-
do I see a hand?
What was the motion?
Open Wildcat.
No, no.
Not yet.
We haven't got
This
that
was-
motion
Oh,
yet.
no, sorry.
The motion was to keep the main pool closed until completion of construction with anticipated open date around May 14th.
Good.
Okay,
Well,
all in favor?
I guess I'll vote, but I'm not happy.
Okay. All right.
All right.
How about if we take a look at these other things, food
Wait
and
a second.
beverage?
No, 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 no,
The
no, no.
Wildcat Pool, the Wildcat Pool.
Wildcat.
Wildcat.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Here's what I recommend. I move that we open Wildcat Pool with a schedule and restrictions to be determined by John Mihawk and Mark West.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, unanimously approved. Okay. Now, we've got food and beverage, clubhouse administration, clubhouse dining room. How do you feel about accepting Mark's suggestions here and moving along?
I think
I'm
We're
good
gonna
with
have
Just
time to
that
revisit.
because we are running out of time.
we'll have time to revisit this.
Suggestions, what you have written down?
Yeah. And Jack makes a good point. We can always come back to this and tweak it.
Yeah, I'm good with what's written down, Paul.
And I think it addressed all facets of the reopen plan. And to reiterate, I would like the community to be able to peruse what we've come up with today. And I think they will see that we've given this a lot of thought. And we're looking at a phased in opening and something
How
they can
about
be
if,
comfortable with.
How about if Lanny and Cezanne and I and one other person look at this whole list when it's finally cobbled together in the next day or whatever it is, and so we can publish it on the website.
That sounds good to me.
I will send it to you right after this meeting.
Okay, Lanny.
Can't leave my Zoom screen though, so.
No, I'll send it to you when we're done.
I have a question about having 4 people at a table. Mark, are you thinking that you'd be allowing a Rummikub with people sitting that close to each other?
That's the
I can't answer that. At some point in time, I mean, if it's July and August, are we, at what point in time are people going to be not social distancing? That's, I guess,
Well,
in
but this says May 11.
that, it's, we had to pick a day. I mean,
Okay. I would think that that if people are going to be that close, we want them wearing masks at that point in time. I don't think we're going to be past masks if you're within 6 feet of each other by May 11th.
all right, that's fine.
This
Are
is-
you allowing card playing?
No,
No, I don't think so.
But that's what this says, people.
No,
I know that. I disagree with that, Lanny. I
Okay.
really, I believe that the social distancing really puts us at risk. And it's as simple as that. You can lessen the risk with masks, but you can't eliminate it.
Do you want to say?
Where's card playing on this list? I don't. see
it's
Yeah.
not. This is the part of the written plan here that I don't like. I don't think we should be risking opening up the multi-purpose room, the dining room / multi-purpose area for any activity until further notice.
I agree.
That's fine with me.
Here's my take on this. First of all, food and beverage is the only area that we are required to keep closed because of the rules set forth by our government. Everything else that we're talking about and have talked about today is up to our purview.
That's
So
right.
food and beverage can't do anything until some governmental action is taken. So those people are shut down, except for the small amount of meals that have been put out. And I think we need to question that too.
Okay, somebody moved that we close this until we decide not to.
So
And
I'm-
I think we're
Table
going to
it.
find that the governor is going to rescind his order probably by May 1st anyway, so we will soon have to deal with this, but we don't have to deal with it today. So
I move to
if the
table.
governor doesn't rescind, well, it makes all the more reason why we should keep it closed.
Table
Well,
it.
then I move to table the discussion.
Second.
Is that okay with you, Mark?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay.
All those in favor? Right, we got to vote on it.
Okay. All right, good. All right, well, I guess we'll move to April late fees. I want to thank you all for your hard work on this. It's not easy and it's not finished. So we'll have to come back together and make sure all of this makes sense because I want the community to understand it. So Jack, I appreciate your volunteering to make sense of all this. And tell me again who you will be working with.
Just Lonnie and Susan and anyone else who wants to volunteer, I guess. But I think the two of us can look
Okay,
and make
very
sure
good.
numbers right.
Thank
I'm
you for that.
sending it to you now.
Okay.
Okay, April late fees chat.
I move that we approve the waiving of late fees for the month of April.
Second.
Have a second, any discussion? All in favor? Michael?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, unanimous.
Okay. I move that we waive contributions to the long-term capital fund for the months of for
April.
the statement months of April, May, and June. Although not part of the recommendation, I'm recommending this because I think it's an attempt to reassure our residents that we're not forging ahead with business as usual without any sensitivity to the financial hardship that some of our residents must be facing.
I second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, unanimously passes. Condo color palette.
I'm
Lindia,
staying out of this.
Oh, I've been working with Michael Hargraves. He's on the committee. And I actually met with Mark Salazzo from that Architectural Standards Committee. And I've been working with Alex, our condo rep from Advanced Properties. She has seven or eight properties here, plus coach homes. And we're working together with everybody looking at the palette. We'd like to have the same palette as the homes have, so that everybody would have a consistent palette in the community. And then we're all going to work together to come up with a plan for the condos so that when we paint, it won't be a mishmash and it won't be a whole bunch of colors. We're actually working on a very neutral new color, but possibly doing two colors on one building, as all the newer ones are doing, like the outside of the buildings, which protrude out, and then the inside two units are set back in, and so having a color that coordinates with that.
so is your motion what is cited down here on the, under condo color palette?
Yes, to approve the same palette as the homeowner has.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay,
Third.
any discussion?
Just one question, Lindia.
Sure.
Is the plan to still, I mean, I'm not for or against, I'm asking to understand, to have all the condos the same color or maybe have in groups of colors? Are you planning on having all different colors? What's your thoughts, sir?
We're planning to either have all the same probably 2 colors on each unit that
Okay,
correspond with each other, like a tan and a beige or something like that.
so, so even
And-
though we have all the colors, you're not gonna have each condo a different, okay, okay.
Right, and also we might do a plan where we're within the same color palette with different shades, but all within the same, like 2 or 3 shades different, so that maybe we can do it in a group, like so 4 and then 4, have a
Okay.
plan.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to know.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael,
The concern of the committee was that they do not want a rainbow of colors around that lake. You know, we're being assured that that's not going to happen. Plus the fact that when that modification request comes back, it has to come back through the committee,
Absolutely.
you know. So we would actually have some level of say at the end. As
Right, right.
good. Okay, any further discussion? Then all in favor of the motion? Okay, again, passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Let's move now to
Uh-oh.
committee and board liaison appointments. Okay, as I mentioned previously, I am going to recommend and cast one vote for all the previous liaisons from this past year.
No, let it go.
So activities will be Lindia, architectural standards, Michael, communications will be Jack, compliance, myself, finance will be Chat, landscaping, Lindia, and tennis is Lanny. So I make that recommendation to you.
Do we have to approve that?
Should I ask?
Yes.
Or not?
I move we accept Paul's recommendation.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. So I have unanimous again. Very good. Let's go to committee reports.
We got
Lanny?
about 3 minutes left, right?
Okay, yeah.
How much time we have left, Mark?
3 minutes.
Let's hang on here. Let me take a quick look.
It may not cut off.
It may not. It's just that I put it at 3 hours. I just want to make, I don't know if it's got.
Well, 3 hours would be
Oh,
fine.
3 hours. Oh, we got 30 more minutes that
Yes,
Okay,
you
good.
have 30 minutes.
make a speech.
All
But I
right.
think you guys are supposed to go into executive session at some point in time.
Oh, okay. That's
Okay, Lanny, you had the floor.
Thank you. The tennis committee met on March 31st and via email since then. I wanted to give you an update on tennis membership. As of April 9th, tennis membership has decreased from 33 to 295 members. 40% of members are homeowners. The decrease is primarily due to losing monthly members because of court closure. 2 members, 1 family, have deferred renewing their memberships. No May non-renewals have been reported as yet. As I mentioned earlier, historically, we would have had more members in April, but we would not expect monthly members in May. I'm going to move to the budget and then back to the forms. The net for the tennis budget is $1,790 under budget for March. We added less to our profit than was budgeted. Because we did well in January and February, the year-to-date figure is $7,028 over budget. We needed to have a good profit by the end of April to cover for the lower profit over the summer. April will probably be even more under budget due to the loss of monthly members. This next month will be a much better time for us to discuss what it looks like the impact of COVID has been on the tennis program. I wanted you to know that Paul Barris, our director of tennis, got trained to do court maintenance. So he has been doing it on a daily basis so that we haven't had to hire anyone. We've learned that tennis courts actually need to be maintained more when they're not played on than when they are played on. So his maintenance work has been critical to retaining the health of our courts. Going back to the membership form, as Brownie noticed, the tennis staff were attempting to update the records of membership forms, including liability statements on all members. But unfortunately, the form was not corrected to exclude the health, the elimination of health as a termination reason. So I recommend, or I'd like to move that we ask the tennis program to correct the member application form to delete health as a reason for getting a refund for terminating tennis. Period.
And send it out again? Is that what you want to do?
Let me,
Yes.
I don't think we need a motion for that.
well,
That
had
long
my
time
hand up.
ago. It
I
just
had
wasn't done.
I had my hand up.
Go ahead, Brownie.
First of all, I agree with Terry. We don't have a motion. The board a year ago passed that health no longer was. So we just need the tennis to change it, okay? But the other thing, we also need to add moving in there. Not only was health in there, if you look, I sent you, you may not have seen it. I sent you an email this morning with the board minutes, our new rules and regulations, and what was in the form. So not only does health have to be taken out, moving has to be added on, but we don't need a motion. That's already our rules and regulation and what we pass. Second thing is, even though I was the one that brought up the problem with the financial, based on what we decided about opening tennis in 4th and 11th, I'm no longer really concerned. I think that we'll basically keep our members, maybe a little effect, but not a great effect, okay? So I just
I
wanted to say
agree.
that, okay?
Okay,
Terry.
if you don't, I thought you wanted a motion, but fine, I'll just ask Paul to do it.
No, you'll just,
Terry, then Chap.
Yeah, as far as tennis is concerned, I would like to make a motion that during the period of time that the courts have not been available due to being closed, that we credit back all permanent tennis members the appropriate per diem when they renew next year's tennis membership.
Have you studied the financials before you made that motion?
I sure did.
So Chap, what does that mean?
I've
In this
discussed
period
this-
of crisis.
discussed this with Mark and Terry, and to the best of my ability, and I'm going to deal with it in 30-day increments. For every 30 days of membership fees that we waive, we're talking approximately $20,000 in lost income. Correct, Mark?
That's understandable.
There goes our tennis program.
The only question I have is that, what are you going to do for the regular residents of the community that help pay for the reserves and the taking care of the tennis courts as they're necessary? Are they going to get anything back too?
No, but they're not paying anything in anyway.
Oh, now,
Well-
wait a minute.
Oh, don't even start that one.
Capitalization.
Was there a second
you
on
found
that
out that?
motion?
No, there's no
Sorry,
second.
my internet cut out, so I didn't hear the motion.
before we have discussion, I didn't hear a second.
I didn't get the motion.
There is no second.
That's
There is
what
no
I'm-
second.
And I don't
Can I-
want to second it.
Can somebody repeat the motion as my internet cut out?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. What I propose is for the time that we have our courts open, that we credit the amount of money to the annual renewals for each member who is a permanent member and is up for renewal. And they get that per diem. So in other words, if we were out for 60 days, next year, they'll pay for 10 months instead of 12.
I'll second it just so we can have some discussion. Terry, how would you cover the cost of that?
That's my question. And what does that do to the tennis program? You were worried about losing tennis players earlier. This will cripple the tennis program financially to the point where it will never be the same.
Well, Terry, did you have some ideas of how you'd cover it?
At this point here, no, I don't. We have
Okay.
$1,000 that we appropriate towards the good for each year.
Number two, we don't know how long this is going to go. We don't know
Well,
if there'll be
we
a
do-
spike.
we do
We don't
know
know what's
if we're
going
gonna
to happen.
start-
I think
if
this
we're
is
gonna
totally
start in May 4th,
premature.
If we're going to start in May 4th, then it's obviously that we have to take care of, let's just say, April 1st through May 4th.
I have a question.
Well, what if we have a spike between now and then and we have to close everything down and tennis goes down for 2 more months?
And we can
Do
change,
we have a crystal ball? Do we know
no,
that?
we can change it. And
Well,
we-
I think the motion is premature. We have a lot to study before we do that. We're in a period of financial crisis as well.
I have my hand up.
Browning,
Even though, again, I was the one worried about financial, I think that would be a big mistake. And I think the fact that we've set a date we're going to open, I think most people realize, even though they weren't happy, if we lose 4 or 5 weeks, there was a reason for it, a virus. Lots of people suffered a lot more than the tennis players did. So I don't think given that we're now going to open the courts, I think the membership will understand that without giving this back. And I think it would be financially a disaster to do that. And I don't think it's necessary now that we have an outlook of opening up. Okay. I
Jack,
think the people will understand.
So
that.
I just was curious if you did the same thing when Irma came and you couldn't play tennis for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however long that was.
No, we did not.
No, but that was a little different.
Why?
Why? Because nobody else could play anywhere else, anywhere. We've got people that are playing all over the place now.
I don't know where they're playing, but Lanny,
17 other courts.
How are they playing on all these
they may
private?
be open, but they may not have access to it.
Yeah, a lot of them don't
Lanny,
have
go ahead.
access. Okay.
I do not support this at this time. If it turns out that we, by some chance, have a lot of excess at the end of the year, we could look into it. But I think that we can't put the tennis program in so much debt that it folds.
We'll never recover from it.
Yeah, so I agree that it's premature. I understand people are asking for it. We could give them the money back now and then we'll have to charge them that much more come January.
Exactly.
But that doesn't make any sense. So I think that we need to just tell them, remember, we pay for ourselves. There's not an other person who can pay for this. And the courts still need to be maintained and all this still needs to happen. And when we know the money at the end of the year, we can look at it, but we don't see any way that we're going to find, money coming from heaven to pay for this.
Lindia,
Yes, Terry, I also feel the same way. I think I'm really very surprised that people would actually be clamoring for their money during this short period of time that we have been closed when we're trying to just help people here. But that's neither here nor there. But in addition to that, I am really concerned about a person who would cancel their membership knowing that they're going to go home back to some other state for 6 months. And by not renewing their membership in April or May, that they are going to be able to go all summer without playing, probably until October. And then they're going to come back and try to renew their membership. And I think there ought to be a higher membership fee. for anybody who does that, because I just find that unbelievable, that they would take advantage of all of us who pay, who
Well,
play.
first of all, it would not apply to anybody that doesn't renew on time. So if they,
Let's,
if they're.
we're off the subject.
This has got nothing to do with this motion. Let's.
Yeah, we're off the subject. Yeah. Let's get the motion.
You guys better get moving.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those who oppose, raise your hand. Okay, it's 8-1. You've got that, Cezanne?
I do.
Okay. Let's go now to, I guess we're at date of the next board meeting. Let's schedule it for May what?
13th or the, I don't know. 17th?
Let's do
17th or the
probably
24th?
14th or 21st.
Hmm.
What do you think?
Earlier the better.
14.
Let's do the 14th. And if we don't have a lot of things, we'll have a shorter board meeting, something under 3.5 hours, hopefully. And don't forget, we will probably meet next week for the strategic plan initiative. So
you know a
we'll
day
be
for
back
that,
in touch
Paul?
with you about that.
Do you have a possible day or?
I do not, let's just think about next Thursday.
Okay,
Gives us a week, and I'll talk to Jerry and see what he thinks about that. So we'll shoot for the 14th of May for the next meeting. Now we'll move into executive session.
Well,
And
Paul, one point, I'm usually not available Thursday morning. I don't know if you were thinking about morning or afternoon.
yikes, that's a
Thursday
good
morning
point.
wouldn't be good for me. I have a regular meeting then.
How about other days during the week?
That's the only really morning I usually have a regular meeting is on Thursday morning. Okay,
Okay, so Mark, maybe we could shoot for a Wednesday with Jerry. Because typically he likes to do it in the morning.
yeah,
If we can do it in the afternoon, we could try that, but
that's the
maybe
only
Wednesday
morning.
morning.
All right, if I'm gonna move into executive session, I'm going to stop the live stream on YouTube.
Right.
So any of you that are out there watching this board meeting on YouTube, the board is gonna go into executive session and therefore your link will cease and desist.
How many people tuned in, Mark? About,
SAC, how many people
I-
tuned in?
I just kind of kept looking, and at one point I saw a high of 65.
wow, okay.
If
About-
anybody
a few
was
minutes
still
ago, it
left
was
at
like
the end of this
32.
call, I'd be shocked, but that's,
Paul, are you going to ask to go into executive session?
Yes, I need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel issues.
Move it.
I second.
And by the way, we're still on YouTube, just to mention
No,
that.
I'm just waiting till it's,
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure you knew.
Yeah, well, let's wait, make sure we're out of YouTube.
have you all decided that that is safe? I'll say
Yeah, they're
aye.
good.
bye.
There you go. All right.